The island never had a name they could remember. That alone should have felt strange. But at the time, it didn't. It was simply the island, a stretch of dark green rising from the gray-blue water somewhere off the coast, reached by a ferry that ran twice a week and never advertised itself properly. The brochure they found at a travel agency in the city showed a single photograph. A beach swallowed by mist, palm trees leaning as if listening to something beneath the ground. 4 friends, 4 days, no expectations. That was the plan. Ethan Miller stood at the railing of the ferry as it approached the island, hands in his jacket pockets, watching the shoreline slowly sharpen into focus. Behind him, Daniel laughed at something Clara had said. Lydia was already taking notes in a small notebook she carried everywhere, jotting down impressions she claimed she would forget otherwise. Ethan didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He liked knowing where everyone was without looking. They had been friends for years, long enough that the idea of one of them not being there felt impossible. They were balanced, complete. 4 was the number that worked. The island welcomed them without ceremony. No port, no music. Just a narrow wooden dock, damp beneath their shoes, and a man who took their bags without speaking. The air smelled of wet leaves and salt, heavier than it should have been. Time seemed slower there, stretched thin like something that had been pulled too far and left that way. For 4 days, nothing went wrong. They swam in water that felt colder the deeper they went. They drank cheap liquor at night, the stars too sharp above them. They slept poorly, all of them, though none could explain why. On the second night, Daniel mentioned hearing footsteps outside their bungalow. On the third, Lydia said she had dreamt of standing on the dock, watching the ferry leave without her. They laughed about it the next morning. Ethan made sure of that. The 4th day arrived quietly. No one spoke much as they packed. The island felt different in daylight, emptier, as if it had already decided they were leaving and had moved on. The man who handled their luggage nodded once, eyes never meeting theirs. The ferry was there when it was supposed to be. That detail would matter later. They boarded in no particular order. Ethan remembered that clearly. He remembered Daniel behind him on the ramp, one hand gripping the railing, squinting against the sun. Clara was ahead, already complaining about the smell of diesel. Lydia paused at the edge of the dock, writing one last thing in her notebook before stepping on. 4 people. 4 shadows stretching across the deck. The engine started with a dull coughing sound. Ethan turned to say something. He never remembered what. And that was when Clara asked the question. "Where's Daniel?" The ferry was already moving, slow at first, just enough that the dock began to pull away, wood creaking softly as the distance grew. Ethan frowned, scanning the deck. Daniel wasn't by the railing. He wasn't near the cabin. He wasn't anywhere that made sense. "He was just here," Lydia said. Not panicked, not yet, just certain. Claire nodded. "I saw him step on. I remember his jacket." Ethan's chest tightened, irritation rising faster than fear. "He must be below deck," he said. "Or he went to the bathroom." But the words sounded thin, even as he said them. They searched. Every corner of the ferry, every narrow hallway, the small, dim restroom, the storage area near the back, where the crew kept ropes and crates. A man in uniform shook his head when they asked for help, eyes flicking briefly toward the island before looking away again. "No one else boarded," he said. His voice was flat, certain. The dock was now too far to swim back to. The island sat there, silent, already indistinct, as if it were retreating rather than them. Ethan gripped the railing harder than he meant to. Daniel Ross had been on that dock. He was sure of it. What unsettled him wasn't the possibility that Daniel had been left behind. It was the creeping thought that the island didn't seem to notice. The ferry cut through the water with a low, steady rhythm, as if nothing unusual had happened. That was the first thing Ethan noticed. No alarm, no sudden stop, no crew shouting orders or scanning the horizon. Life aboard the ferry continued with an unsettling normality. Passengers sat on benches staring out at the sea. A woman lit a cigarette near the cabin door. Somewhere inside, a radio crackled faintly, a voice speaking too softly to make out the words. The world had not reacted to Daniel's absence. That, more than anything, frightened Ethan. He couldn't have fallen, Clara said, her voice calm in the way that made people listen. There would have been noise. Someone would have seen it. Lydia leaned against the railing, eyes fixed on the shrinking island. Unless it happened before we boarded. Ethan turned sharply. No. The word came out harder than he intended. I saw him, Ethan said. He was behind me, on the ramp. He joked about the heat. He stopped himself. He hated when his voice did that, when it wavered. He was there. Clara nodded slowly. I believe you. But belief wasn't the same as proof. They sat together near the side of the deck, forming an unconscious circle, as if space itself might close in if they didn't. The wind grew stronger as the ferry moved farther from the island, carrying with it the sharp smell of salt and oil. Lydia opened her notebook. Ethan noticed immediately. He always noticed when people wrote things down. It bothered him. Writing made things permanent, and he preferred his version of events unchallenged. What are you doing? He asked. Trying to remember, Lydia said softly, before it changes. That sentence landed heavier than it should have. Clara glanced at the notebook. Remember what? The order, Lydia replied. Who boarded first? Who stood where? Small things. Ethan felt irritation creep up his spine. We don't need that. We know what happened. Clara tilted her head, studying him. Do we? They tried to reconstruct the morning, the breakfast they barely ate, the bags lined up by the door, the walk to the dock, sunlight filtered through the trees. At first, the memories aligned. Daniel had complained about his headache. Daniel had stopped to tie his shoe. Daniel had joked about never wanting to leave. Then the gaps appeared. Clara remembered Daniel carrying the larger suitcase. Ethan remembered carrying it himself. Lydia remembered Daniel standing beside her on the dock, silent, staring at the water. Ethan couldn't picture that at all. Every time the story shifted, Ethan felt something tighten inside his chest, like a hand closing slowly around his ribs. Memory isn't a recording, Claire said. It reshapes itself, especially under stress. Her tone was clinical, reassuring, too reassuring. Ethan watched her closely. She didn't fidget, didn't stumble over words. It was as if she had already accepted a version of events and was simply guiding them toward it. What about the crew? Ethan said. The man who took our bags, he saw us. He said no one else boarded, Lydia replied. Then he's wrong. Lydia finally looked at Ethan. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. Or he's right, and that's the problem. The island was nearly gone now, reduced to a dark smudge on the horizon. Ethan felt a sudden, irrational urge to shout, to call Daniel's name into the wind, as if sound itself could pull him back into existence. He didn't. Leaders didn't panic. That's what Ethan had always believed. Someone had to keep things grounded. Someone had to decide what made sense. And it made sense that Daniel was missing. What didn't make sense was how easily the world had accepted it. Later, below deck, they spoke to the captain. He listened patiently, hands folded, nodding at the appropriate moments. When Ethan finished, the captain sighed, not annoyed, not dismissive, just tired. "We keep a manifest," he said. "4 of you came to the island, 3 boarded the return ferry." "That's impossible," Ethan snapped. The captain slid a clipboard across the table. 3 names: Ethan Miller, Clara Bennett, Lydia Harper. Daniel Ross was not there. Ethan stared at the paper, pulse pounding in his ears. "That list is wrong." The captain met his gaze. "Sir, this is how it's always been." Always. The word echoed long after they left the room. That night, Ethan lay awake in his bunk, listening to the ferry hum through the dark. For the first time since the island appeared on the horizon days ago, a thought surfaced that he couldn't immediately push away. What if Daniel hadn't been taken? What if he had been removed? Not erased violently, not dragged screaming into the sea, but edited. Like a sentence quietly cut from a paragraph, leaving the rest to carry on as if it had never been there. Above him, somewhere on the deck, Lydia turned a page in her notebook. The sound was soft. Ethan woke before the lights came on. He didn't remember falling asleep. For a moment, he lay still in the narrow bunk, listening. The ferry's engine thrummed beneath him, steady and indifferent. Somewhere down the corridor, someone coughed. Normal sounds, reassuring sounds. And yet, his heart was already racing. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. His mouth felt dry, as if he had been speaking all night without sound. A strange pressure lingered behind his eyes, the kind that came from holding onto a thought too tightly for too long. Daniel. The name surfaced immediately, uninvited. Ethan swung his legs down and froze. The bunk across from him, Daniel's bunk, was neatly made. Too neatly. The blanket was tucked in with care, corners sharp. The pillow sat centered, untouched. It looked like a bed prepared for inspection, not abandoned in the middle of a crisis. Ethan stood and ran his hand over the fabric, cold, as if no one had ever slept there. "Get it together," he muttered to himself. In the mirror above the small sink, his reflection stared back, controlled, composed. The same face people trusted, the same face that solved problems. That face couldn't accept nonsense. Up on deck, Clara and Lydia were already awake. They stood side by side, watching the sea roll past, mugs of coffee cooling in their hands. The sky was pale, the sun struggling to break through low clouds. "You didn't sleep," Clara said when she saw him. Ethan bristled. "Neither did you." Lydia closed her notebook. "I slept a little." The way she said it suggested sleep had happened to her, not something she had chosen. Ethan leaned against the railing, staring out at the water. "I've been thinking," he said, "about the island." Clara nodded. "So have we?" "That we bothered him. The man with the bags," Ethan continued. "Did either of you notice his face?" Lydia frowned. "Not clearly." "I did," Ethan said. "I remember his eyes. He never looked directly at Daniel." Clara turned slightly. "Are you sure?" "Yes." The word came too fast. Clara didn't challenge him. She simply watched, waiting. Ethan hated that silence. It felt like being measured. "What if," Ethan said, lowering his voice, "the island keeps something? Not physically, not like a trap, but..." He searched for the right word. Selectively. Lydia's fingers tightened around her mug. "That would imply intention," Clara said carefully. "Places don't intend." "People say that about storms," Ethan replied, "and yet they have patterns." For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Lydia said, "I wrote something down on the island. The third night." Ethan turned toward her sharply. "What?" Lydia hesitated. I didn't understand it then. I still don't. Not fully, but it feels relevant. She opened her notebook and flipped back several pages. Ethan leaned closer despite himself. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. If one of us stays behind, the others will remember him less each hour. Ethan's breath caught. That's not funny. I didn't write it as a joke, Lydia said. I wrote it because I woke up with the sentence already in my head. Clara studied the page. You don't remember writing this? No, Lydia said. But I remember agreeing with it. Ethan straightened, irritation flaring again, his shield against fear. This is ridiculous. We're letting stress twist things. People go missing. It happens. But not like this, Clara said quietly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The island's brochure, the same photograph, the same mist, the same leaning trees. Ethan frowned. Why do you still have that? I tried to throw it away this morning, Clara said. It ended up back in my bag. She unfolded it. There had been text beneath the image before. Directions. A name, perhaps. Now there was only the photograph. No title, no address, no evidence that the island had ever been advertised at all. Ethan felt something cold crawl up his spine. That's not possible, he said. Neither is a man disappearing from a moving ferry, Lydia replied. They stood there as the sea continued its endless motion, uncaring. Ethan realized then that something else had changed. When he tried to picture Daniel's face, really picture it, the exact shape of his mouth, the way his eyes narrowed when he smiled, the image slipped, like trying to hold water in his hands. That frightened him more than the idea of the island. Because if Daniel could fade, what did that say about the rest of them? By the time the ferry reached the mainland, Ethan was no longer sure how much time had passed. The sky darkened faster than it should have. Evening folded itself over the day like a sheet pulled too tight, leaving no space to breathe. The dock lights flickered on one by one, their reflections breaking apart on the water. 3 people disembarked. Only 3. No one questioned it. That was the part Ethan would later replay in his mind, the casual way the world accepted the subtraction. No officials waiting. No crew members double-checking names. No one asking why a group that had arrived together returned incomplete. The ferry emptied. Engines shut down. Life resumed. Daniel Ross did not. They rented a car and drove in silence. The road away from the harbor wound through low hills and sparse trees, the headlights carving narrow tunnels through the dark. The radio played softly, a late-night talk show host discussing weather patterns and local news. Nothing about missing persons, nothing about islands. Ethan kept glancing at the empty seat. He hated that seat. It accused him without words. At the motel, Clara checked them in. Lydia paid. Ethan stood back, watching how naturally the 2 women moved together, finishing each other's sentences, anticipating needs without discussion. It felt rehearsed. That night, Ethan dreamed of the dock, not the one they left from. The other one. The island dock. He stood alone this time. The water was perfectly still, a mirror reflecting nothing. Behind him, footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. When he turned, there was no one there, only an extra shadow at his feet. He woke with a gasp, heart pounding, the dream clinging to him like damp clothing. Across the room, Clara slept soundly. Lydia was awake. She sat upright in bed, notebook open, pen resting against the page as if she had paused mid-sentence. You felt it too, she said softly. Ethan swallowed. Felt what? The pull, Lydia replied. Like something unfinished. Ethan rubbed his temples. You need to stop writing things like that. Lydia didn't smile. I'm not writing anymore. She turned the notebook toward him. The page was blank, completely blank. No impressions, no thoughts, no fears. I filled 3 pages, Lydia said. I remember doing it. But when I looked again, she gestured helplessly. Nothing stays. Ethan took the notebook from her hands. It felt heavier than paper should. You're exhausted, he said, forcing steadiness into his voice. We all are. We sleep. In the morning, things will make sense. Lydia watched him carefully. You believe that because you need to. That struck deeper than he wanted to admit. The next day, they went to the police. The officer listened politely, tapping a pen against his desk. He asked reasonable questions, took notes, typed slowly. How long have you known Mr. Ross? He asked. Years, Ethan said. The officer frowned at the screen. I'm not finding any record of him traveling with you. That's because you're not looking hard enough, the officer sighed. Sir, I'm looking at your hotel reservation on the island. 3 guests. That's wrong. So you keep saying. Clara leaned forward. Could there be an error in the system? A missing file? The officer met her gaze. For a brief moment, something like uncertainty flickered there. Then it vanished. Systems don't forget people, he said. People forget people. Outside the station, Ethan exploded. This is insane, he snapped. You're both acting like this is normal. Clara remained calm. We're adapting. Adapting to what? Ethan demanded. To the reality we're being given. That answer terrified him. Because Ethan had always believed reality was something you shaped, something that bent if you pushed hard enough. That night, alone in his motel room, he finally did what he had been avoiding. He called Daniel's number. The line rang once, then twice. Then someone answered. But no one spoke. Ethan's breath caught. Daniel? Silence. Not empty silence. Occupied. As if something were listening. Ethan pulled the phone away from his ear, staring at it, as the call ended on its own. The screen went dark, and in that reflection, for just a second, Ethan thought he saw 4 people standing behind him. Ethan did not sleep again. Every time he closed his eyes, the same sensation returned. Not fear, not panic, but something quieter and far more invasive. The feeling of being excluded from a decision that had already been made. Morning came without relief. Clara was gone. Her bed was empty, neatly made, as untouched as Daniel's had been on the ferry. Lydia sat at the small table by the window, hands folded, staring at nothing. Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. No, he said. No, this isn't happening. Lydia didn't look at him. She left during the night. That's not funny. I didn't say it was. Ethan rushed into the bathroom, empty. He checked the hallway, the parking lot, the motel office. No one had seen Clara leave. No one remembered her checking out. At the front desk, the clerk frowned at the screen. Sir, you booked this room for 2. Ethan slammed his hand on the counter. There were 3 of us. The clerk recoiled slightly, then softened. You should get some rest. That phrase again. As if rest could fix subtraction. Back in the room, Ethan paced. His thoughts circled the same point, again and again, tightening like a noose. Why her? He demanded. Why now? Lydia finally spoke. Because she was next. Ethan turned on her. What does that mean? Lydia stood slowly. She looked smaller somehow, less certain, as if parts of her were already thinning out. I think the island doesn't take randomly, she said. I think it takes imbalance, Ethan scoffed. That doesn't mean anything. It means, Lydia continued, that someone has to stay behind. Someone always does. The others get to leave, lighter than before. Ethan laughed sharply. You're saying Daniel chose to disappear? No, Lydia said. I'm saying he was chosen. And Clara? She understood too much. Ethan felt a cold realization forming. Unwelcome, but undeniable. And me? He asked quietly. Lydia met his eyes. For the first time, there was fear there. I don't think you were ever meant to stay. The words hit harder than any accusation. Ethan shook his head. That's ridiculous. I'm the one who held us together. I planned the trip. I kept things moving. Without me, without you, Lydia interrupted gently, nothing feels incomplete. The silence that followed was unbearable. Ethan remembered something then. A moment he had dismissed. On the island the third night, Daniel had stood apart from the group, staring at the water. Ethan had noticed and turned away. Clara had watched him longer. Lydia had written something down. Ethan had done nothing, because acknowledging Daniel's unease would have meant losing control. You let him go, Lydia said softly, as if reading his thoughts. Not consciously, but enough. The room felt smaller. Ethan reached for his phone. Daniel's number was still there. So was Clara's. Both rang, both answered. No voices, just that same occupied silence. Lydia stepped back. I don't think I have much time left. Ethan stared at her. Then come with me. We'll leave. We'll drive. We'll go anywhere. Lydia smiled sadly. It doesn't work like that. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the notebook. For the first time since the ferry, there was writing on the page. One sentence. Those who refuse to be forgotten are never chosen. Ethan lunged for it. The notebook slipped from her hands and hit the floor. Blank. When Ethan looked up, Lydia was gone. Not vanished violently. Not taken. Just no longer part of the room. Ethan stood alone. 3 names echoed in his mind, fading faster than he could hold them. Daniel, Clara, Lydia. By the time he checked out, he could only remember one clearly. His own. Months later, Ethan would return to the coast. He would stand at a dock that had never heard of the island. He would show photographs no one recognized. He would insist loudly, desperately, that something had been taken from him. People would listen politely, then forget. At night, Ethan would dream of standing on a ferry, watching the shore pull away. Sometimes, in the reflection of the dark water, he would see 4 shadows. Sometimes only one. And somewhere, far beyond memory, beyond maps, the island would remain perfectly balanced, waiting.